sitting on it.
Okay. All right.
And in that regard, if we have the columns out here, I would vote to make this a curbed boulevard rather than simply flush to protect the columns. It's less likely somebody will drive into it. Not impossible, but less likely.
Yeah, I think having the book drop on the, exterior, the curbed, outer makes a lot of sense. I just don't know, is it wide enough for somebody to pass around?
Yes, these are my little indications of a car. So it's enough to have somebody. I mean, we could definitely, this is obviously a sketch, but when it comes time to actually design it, we would make sure that you could do that, because that's what I don't like about some, like Starbucks. You can't go around a group of people. You're stuck.
Right.
So
we would want to verify all the turning radii with the fire department and so forth. But yes.
I mean, even now where the book drop is, you back up there anyway. I've sat there to drop stuff off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think you're ever going to fix that perfectly, but having two options, maybe you're going to fix it better.
Yeah.
That's just it. The more we can do to mitigate oblivious people who are in front of you and not even paying attention, there's a queue behind them, but it's never perfect. You're right. Okay. We're going to, we can come back to this as well, but coming down, let's talk a little bit about the interior.
This is exactly what we showed last time. This is the layout for number 1, but if you go to this next page, I sort of sketched over the top of it some ideas that came out, so that just to show, maybe we add a second staff restroom here up on this level. Here's the existing men's restroom, just because there's going to be a whole lot of staff here, and you could use this restroom and then still keep the maintenance office. Then to go down the ramp and to come into this lower floor, we do have an ADA restroom in the staff break room. This was the one that left a conference room, meeting room down here. And then there's 2 ADA restrooms over here. So this was just clarifying a little bit more what could happen here, provide some shelving space and workspace. And this is the hallway that we have to carry to the outside as a means of egress. So I put some extra notes on here for, if clarification. So all this is
what we discussed
last time, but
if you recall, there was some discussion over whether this remained the staff area or whether it became a separate public conference meeting space.
And
the primary gain on this design is obviously the large meeting room, a number of smaller meeting rooms, right, that we pick up, the display area as you come in, and then all of the sort of support infrastructure we need for curbside.
And then
do we acquire any additional shelf space, sort of net for the library?
I'm sorry, your voice was breaking up. Did we acquire what?
Do we acquire any shelf space, in total for the library?
Yes, you actually do, because we put shelves all the way around in this area, in this scheme, and then we have a couple more. You can move the new materials sort of in there. We can have a whole discussion of whether you want to put some shelving units on these walls rather than seating, but
didn't we consolidate the desks too and gain?
No, that was the first time around.
Okay, but compared to what's existing.
Compared to what's existing, oh yeah.
Yeah, the consolidation of the desks into a help and circulation desk gave us space here. That's been shown for a while,
right?
But I didn't know, Harmeet, if you meant new shelving compared to existing or new shelving compared to the last scheme.
Yeah, just compared to existing.
Yeah. So that yes, definitely.
And then the other thing we did is we highlighted that, yes, there can be higher windows along this wall. You can still have shelving units out here in fiction, but have privacy for the staff break room, but then still try to get some borrowed natural light.
Transom windows.
Yes, for that. And I am kind of, it's my little indication, but along this wall here, I think it would be partially a glass wall so that it's not, you're not in this tunnel of
Yeah.
a hallway with the ramp. So there's some
Well,
some
it's
interest
safer,
at the
yeah.
end. And yeah, especially if there's I guess, a manned staff space back there, I think you want to have some line of sight with the rest of the staff as well. So that was just a quick little sketch over the top of last time for option 1. So option 2 is keeping this parking lot the way it is and making a third curb cut. So it's clearly separates. This is, you're going through for the drive-through, you're going through to park and to come into the library. But we did the same thing. We pushed that out a little bit so that you could have that, all the amenities from scheme 1 in same thing in here with a covered area. And then same thing here to keep the one-way traffic. And then over here, whether or not you want to add those 10 more spaces or not, that's some work. And then cutting these corners a little bit more so it makes it a little bit easier to make those curves.
This one we would have to talk about with the municipality, because 3 curb cuts in that close proximity to each other could potentially be seen, as a sightline issue. People being able to pull out right next to where you're pulling out. But it is, I think, is it 30 miles an hour on Borthwick now, or 25?
30. Yep.
30, yeah. It is a narrower street with a reduced speed already, but the advantage up here was having just the 2 curb cuts. Although recall, we eliminated the one that was further from the intersection and added one closer to the intersection. So that might have gotten some pushback as well. This gives a more natural flow because you would probably establish this as staff parking, and most people would come in here and still be able to make this transition or go into regular parking areas. Or loop around, as you were saying, Lisa, and use the drop and then curve back around and out.
Yeah, I think in this scenario, they're less likely to back up from
Right.
the drop-off area into the main entrance.
Right. Yep. So
we also,
I'm sorry. Let me back up just a second. If you were to use the book drop, I would think there'd be a sign here that says staff parking and book drop. So the public would use this to go to the book drop or the drop window. But this, if they made a mistake and came in this one, what I was saying is they could still potentially make it. But what I wouldn't want is for this to back up here because these people are waiting to come down to enter the queue. So this would be a book drop entry. This would be the public entry, and this is the public exit.
I was going to say, we, from last time, we started to show some plantings as well.
Yeah.
Because I think we're going to need some as a little bit of a buffer to this property. And then there's a change in grade in here a little bit. So I wanted to have a little bit of space between that parking lot and this parking lot. Just looking at the topography a little bit more.
We do want to make sure that we don't overemphasize this because we don't want people parking here and trying to come in the building here. That's not the intention. So whether it's through site signage or some other means of architecturally de-emphasizing this and keeping it as an emergency egress and a staff entry, we want people who park here to come up and around to the main entry. That's still the goal.
The other thing I thought of after I already colored everything in is this might be ideal for your staff break picnic area. If the staff break room is going to be here, you can come out and use this zone. So maybe there's fencing along here or some more plantings. So really this does more become staff rather than public. This would be definitely all the public. We had created a little staff patio when
that was
when this is the break room, but that can sort of go away if we develop the staff break room over here. So in this one, we left this as the staff break room, but we did do an ADA restroom so that there's 2 available outside when you close this sliding door in this scheme. And then, so what we did here is we jumped ahead and I did a sketch over the top of it. And I did a little bit more thinking of, hey, what if we move the door back a little bit and you can also gain this small meeting room space for
From
this
the lobby.
lobby, and either leave this as staff break or make that as a seminar room, smaller conference room. Then you get a couple, 1, 2, 3,
Plus a
and
study
a
room.
tiny little study tutor room off of this lobby if this is closed,
Plus the big meeting
plus the
room.
big meeting room. So that was another option. And in this one, it's a little different configuration just for fun. We take the hallway all the way down and go out. And so this just gets pushed over this way. And this could be a staff break room. It all depends. Or this could be building storage, depending on what we want to do with this.
One of the things we're looking at, you may have seen an article recently about post-pandemic library design. We're trying to focus on a bunch of different things. And I think I mentioned to you before, several of them are things we advocate for already. The delineation of personalized space with smaller reading niches and things like that. Having a variety of meeting room sizes so that you're only contaminating an area as necessary for the group. But one of the other things that's being discussed, and I'm still on the fence about it, is this idea of one-way traffic, that you're not constantly crossing somebody. And in a way, as we've reworked this whole idea of what happens here, it almost makes some kind of sense that you would come in, enter the library here. After you've been here, you go to Cirque and you go out here. So we almost created one-way traffic within the building for pedestrian traffic, which is one of the things that, as I say, certain designers are advocating for in the long term, so that you can maintain social distance within the building. It's not a hard and fast rule that somebody has to do it that way, but we can encourage movement in that way that maybe lessens the extent of people crossing and bumping into each other. I don't know if anybody had thoughts about that. Maybe we don't have to worry about it at all at some point, but
I'd love to not have to worry about it.
Yeah. The thing about the variety of meeting room sizes, though, is really one of the key things. And as you know, we've been talking about it since long before the pandemic, that's key for library programming. But I don't think, just to preclude the question, I don't think large meeting rooms are going away. First of all, we're hardwired for attendance at events that involve significant portions of the community. But the other thing is, even in the short term, as we start to come back from the pandemic, it's likely that it will ramp up as we go, that you wouldn't jump immediately to whatever, 120, 150 people, but even a meeting of 50 to 60 people, by having the larger room, you can hold that meeting and maintain more separation as we get closer to the new normal, whatever that may be. But this certainly gives you lots of flexibility for something that we heard about from the community is different from small meeting room, Soho or conference room, tutor room, maybe even a seminar room, plus the large meeting room. I mean, just think of the wealth of that compared to what you have available now. So those are the modifications we were making to try to respond to comments from the last time. As I mentioned at the beginning, we'd like to start trying to put the phases together in a way that meets your expectations. So after we've finished with questions here, we'd like to sort of go through what you're thinking would happen in a phase 1, a phase 2, and so forth. We have to evaluate those priorities from our perspective. If you can't do C before you do A and B, for example. But from a committee perspective, what are you trying to accomplish from the beginning? I think, we had sort of settled earlier on the large meeting room, shrinking the distance to the entry from the parking lot. This was a priority phase 1. But as we look at things like the book drop window and so forth, is that part of that phase one? Is that moved into a 1B or a phase two? Those are things we sort of want to think about. So because of all the different permutations of what the phasing could be, we want to at least start with what you're thinking. But first, let's come back. Are there any questions or anything else regarding the modifications we've made? Is there something we missed or forgot?
No, I don't think so.
I have a question.
Sure.
There's part of the schematic that is not in blue has modifications to the periodicals in the children's area, including teen zones and study rooms. Are those factored in as changes that would be that are part of the calculated cost of changes, or?
Yes, they are in the master plan. Can you
What are you trying to do?
just go back one? They're all still over here. But the reason we had the meeting 2 weeks ago was to specifically look at this area and to look at the curbside area. This is all still part of the master plan. This is showing sort of the sort of the way that we're going. So we just grade that out for now to concentrate on just those two areas. So, but it is in the overall.
But that's an excellent question. You know, is that something we're trying to achieve with phase one, or is that something we're deferring while we work on this? If money is a limited resource and this is phase two that we're going to fundraise for or do a future referendum for or whatever it may be. So it's an excellent question. And that's, you can see sort of where we're coming from. We can include everything as one big project, or we can do 30 different projects, but where are we trying to, what's that sweet spot we're trying to reach for a palatable first project, and the future ones we can adjust as we go. But that's sort of what we were looking at, because presuming we're going to present this back to the board as a recommendation for the overall master plan, one of the first questions is how do we start? What is phase one? What's included in that scope wise? And how much does phase one cost? But does it include all these areas or not? We're not clear. They're in there at some point.
I guess I'll just start, and anybody else can jump in. This is just my first blush impression. I just feel like if we were going to do phase one, the gain of that large meeting room, not just for the gain of the large meeting room, but also for the gain of the flexibility that it allows for all the other pieces of whatever project ends up happening. I think that's clearly that's got to be part of one. And I think if you're doing that, then it doesn't make sense not to handle the entrance area-ish. You know, you got to get in there. That, you know, that involves, you know, and there's reheats in that, and there's, you know, the asbestos abatement for the hallway. That's all part of that thing. And then the question is that one, and then how much of the I'm pointing at things that you guys can't see, how much of the you know, how much of that maintenance room rework can you grab and curbside pickup redesign
right
in phase one? That's my first blush impression.
You hit on something. This stuff is what I was referring to earlier as A and B that has to happen to let C happen.
Yeah.
So if we're doing this, we sort of have to do this part at least, because we have to get mechanicals and electrical and all these things over to it. So you're absolutely right about that. Whether we include this in it or make it later, that gives us a little bit of opportunity to think or flexibility, and obviously these other pieces. But we sort of assumed that this was probably part of phase one, some of these improvements, this, you know, the question becomes, are we doing part of this as phase one?
That's the question.
You know,
if you're getting into parking lot, you know, because that's you know, there's going to be some plaza redesign in a phase one that would include that, you know, that large meeting room and the A and B parts that you're talking about. How much? Yeah, but I think you could do that without too much parking lot if you had to. Correct. So anything, as soon as you go curbside pickup, and that work on that space. So maybe not the maintenance workroom area, that specific room, maybe you could work on. It'd be silly, but that as soon as you start working back there, it presupposes a whole parking lot look at and redesign. So
Agreed. Because there's no point in doing this if you haven't done this piece.
Yeah.
You'd have this staffed area that doesn't make sense. So this presupposes that you're also doing this. So
yeah, a weird
again,
icy walk-up pickup window doesn't do anybody any good.
Right.
Right.
And so part of it is, scope wise, what are we trying to accomplish? But the other part is roughly just order of magnitude. If we're saying, hey, we have to keep this to 2.5 to 4 million, or we have to keep it to 5 million, that helps us define what we can and can't include in that as well. But we'd like to at least take a stab at that phasing and then run it by you, of course. And then we could have a little more conversation about, well, could we move this? Could we defer this piece? Could we move this piece up? But we wanted to start from something that was close to what your expectations were. Because we've had a lot of iterations of this by now.
It may naturally fall into sort of three pieces as I'm looking at it. One piece is, as Jeff described, right, the maintenance workroom, curbside pickup, parking lot work. That's one.
Yep.
The large meeting room itself is two.
Mm-hmm.
And then essentially everything that needs to be extended up to the large meeting room and then back to the circulation desk, reformatting is three. You could sort of do.
Okay. But there's still all of this as well. That's either for or deferred indefinitely.
Right.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask about the Plaza changes, and I know some of the issues that we had talked about improvements there and whether or not we would have a covered walkway. Where does that fall? I don't think there's a covered walkway there that I'm not seeing.
Yeah. We're not showing one
No.
right now. No, we shortened the distance, certainly.
Right.
Depending on how much, this is a remodification of the layout, right?
Yeah.
So we're pulling up what's there, which does give us an opportunity to do a snow melt system in the paving, which would alleviate icing problems and moisture problems, but obviously cost some money.
We're calling it stamped concrete rather than any brick or anything like that. So it's more, it's better.
Stable. Yeah, it
better.
displaces at the same rate instead of bricks popping up
Yeah.
or shovels or snow blowers catching on things.
For a snow melt system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the snow melt systems have become more efficient. There were always hydronic, running off of a boiler and running tubing through those areas. There are electric systems now, and while electricity is expensive to run, keep in mind that it's on a sensor. It only runs when it has to run. It melts the stuff down or evaporates and then shuts itself off. And that's a much less expensive initial install, and a relatively, as long as you keep up with it, it keeps the maintenance low anyway. Cobble Skill is doing that right now. We just did it somewhere else. I'm trying to think, Washingtonville. So, we can look at the options related to that. Or Lisa, as you said, if we want to put a canopy or a cover over it, it changes the architecture a bit, but it's schools certainly do that at bus drop-offs and things like that. Long canopies that go from the door to along the bus pickup.
Right. I mean, it's not like that area right there is gorgeous or anything, though. So
It can be.
I'll defer on the aesthetic opinion. Remember, we were focusing
Really?
on this lawn area as well as a public area in the future that
Right.
that this opens out into. So yeah, there is site stuff here that what's the extent of that we're trying to accomplish at any one time. Yeah.
okay.
And I would ask how this matches up with the programming of the next 5-6 years, right? So the meeting room would be great to have, right? I think that's definitely
Yes.
something I would be supportive of. The and then the curbside pickup improvements, I think would be great to have. So I don't know. Is there? I mean, that's kind of how I see it matching with the programmatic side as well.
I mean, and you're just going to get the Jeffreyan opinion right now, but the thing that we're missing the most when we're not in a pandemic, and I'm going to, think that we're not at some point.
Yeah.
Is that large meeting room,
Yeah.
and then, I think what the pandemic has shown us is the importance of that curbside pickup and the desire for that not to go away. I really, there are people who feel extremely strongly that continued to go.
Yeah.
So in my ideal world, everything that's kind of in a tan color, it would be a phase one, but I have then you get down to the very practical discussion of how big's that bite?
Yeah.
Because that presupposes that parking lot renovation has to happen with that curbside pickup stuff. So,
Yeah. And the site drawings that we did, it's really the master plan. So for us getting your input on what are the most important things for phase one, maybe we can look at a smaller, what do we do, a site phase one that can accommodate maybe part of getting access to that without doing any additional parking. So so this is good for us to understand that, to come up with a sort of a real number for a phase one.
Seems like half your community wants to dynamite this little knoll here, so maybe you can get volunteers to do that.
Everybody hates that thing, man. It's they hate that they can't walk on it when they want to. That's what they hate about it.
Right. But yeah, the site could also be broken up a little bit if we concentrate on what are we doing building wise phase one, then we can concentrate on which pieces of the site have to happen.
Right.
I mean, it just feels like everything that on this view, everything, and again, if I'm speaking too much, shut me up. Everything that's in dark tan is the priority, right?
Yes, that and that.
Yeah.
Why don't I'll suggest then, hearing no objections, and please object if you do think otherwise, why don't we try and develop a phase one, and we'll send it to you next week with here's what we're thinking. It would include X, Y, and Z. Here's our costs. You've seen we lay out the costs from the hard costs to the soft costs and furnishings, and we'll take a stab at this is what we think of phase one and what it would be, and then a phase two and a phase three. But in doing that, in other words, the design, we're going to work towards the design we've talked about here, but let us take a stab at phasing that you can comment on then.
Would you have any, thank you. Would you have any way to even roughly estimate what an electric snow melt system would cost, like on a square foot basis as we're looking at the plaza?
I don't right this second, but I would by next week. Sure.
I mean, it just feels like if you're ripping up the plaza, which is what I'm seeing there, like that plaza is going to get, that's your opportunity. And hearing you say it doesn't have to be hydronic, the last time we heard a figure for snow melt, it was inching up on $500,000, and that was not palatable. So
the electric is like a mat, like a grid mat of electric conductor, wire.
We're using them on top of the asphalt right now outside at Curbside currently. It would be really nice to have those under the asphalt so we don't trip on them.
Yeah.
So,
but I will get a number for you that we can talk about as part of that phase then.
We have a number for Bubbles.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'll look at what we've got in the other projects for the square foot number and take it from there.
Yeah, I think that would pretty quickly we'd get to oh no, or interesting. So
well, yeah, because the hydronic system also means looking at the boilers, looking at what the redundancy capacity is. I mean, there's a whole flow of things there, whereas this simplifies it quite a bit.
Yep.
So
would the ice melt systems, or are they typically done for the entire area or just for a walkway with?
We would probably do
primary.
Yeah, the primary, like this section that is essentially a walkway, but maybe not this whole section. So we might do some sidewalk from the handicap to here, and then this main section, something like that. you're not likely running it all the way out to parking spaces. or
No,
anything
yeah.
like
It was
that.
just even in the plaza area. I mean, if you only have to do 6 feet wide by 30 feet long.
Yeah,
or
I was gonna
something.
say I would probably cover just the main thoroughfare there, and to be safe, maybe the sidewalk up to the handicap spots here so that they're definitely cleared.
Got it. Okay.
So I have a question. Can Lisa or Paul, can one of you remind me, was the large meeting room, is that for like 125?
Can you see?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 9.
Do those chairs actually represent a seat?
Yes, they do.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Okay.
So, sorry, 7 times 9 is 63, and 63 is 126. So it's set up right now at about 100, 125 to 130.
But the actual capacity of the room is by the square footage, and we don't have the
Yeah.
occupancy calculation. You know, it could be up to 140. I don't know what the square footage is offhand, but
The code defines things differently
Yeah.
if it's chairs only, chairs and tables, or standing room. But the number I just gave you at 125 to 130 is based on the chairs we're showing there.
and we typically like to show how a room would be used,
Mhm.
and you need to have aisles around the side and in the middle, and if you're going to have a speaker, you need some room in the front and you need some room in the back. So we like to show a practical use. So 120 people in there, sure, you can fit it, and we've just shown you can. But if you're going to have another type of layout, you may be able to get more people in there.
Oh, I can go. I know where Chris is going on this. When we would get to design time on this,
Yep.
what we would be interested in is the scaling that more to 175 to 200 people, if you were able to get, and how much bigger, and is there
Mhm.
room to be able to do that? That's
Yeah, we can figure that out fairly easily.
Yeah.
In the computer, if we need to add on to that space more.
Right.
Okay.
Extending this another 10 feet or another 5 feet this way, we can get to a number like that. So
Yeah.
if you tell us your goal is 200, is that what you said?
that would be my. You'd make everybody an extremely happy people if it was
Okay. Let us take a look at that and adjust this and
Yeah.
make sure
just. think
yes, we
about
could
it.
make it fit. So let's just
Perfect.
see what that looks like then.
I
Thank
think
you. Yeah, because I was looking at, the patio, if the staff room was over there,
Yeah.
was located by the maintenance. Now there's that staff, the outside staff space. Can we push the tables and chairs? I was kind of seeing, is there a way to get as much people space in that room? Because I would hate to put a huge addition and then we still have to turn people away.
Right. I mean,
Understood.
that's
One of the other things that you've seen some of the meeting rooms we've done, we often build in both cabinetry and bench seating along the perimeter as well, which gives you more storage in the space and potentially more seating as well. But if we know the goal is 200, let us play with this to adjust that and make it architecturally symmetrical and work.
Yeah, we'd be interested to see if that's possible without being ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. If we're doing it and we say, oh man, we can really only get to 180, we'll let you know. But we'll shoot for 200.
Great. Thanks, Chris.
Yes, thank you all.
That's an excellent point, and that's why we have these conversations. We want to make sure we're giving you what you need, not what our assumptions are.
I was gonna say that this imaginary line was the corner of your property. We just picked a point there and said, oh, we're not gonna go past that point. But there's no reason we can't.
Okay.
And then this point was just so that you could get the maximum viewing if people are sitting around.
Yeah, that's going to be those trade-off things. That's exactly I'd
That's
be
why I
happy
did
to.
this sort of line of sight there to the middle of that plaza so that you could get people around that. So.
Yep. I'd be interested in your eye on that and your thinking on that. So.
Okay. Do we want to set up another meeting to review those types of things? Do you want us to just send it to you next week? What are you thinking? I prefer to have the opportunity to talk to you about it, but I just like talking. So
Listen, my time's paid for, so I'm happy to have a meeting, but,
I'm
you
fine
know,
either way. Yep.
the volunteer trustees here, it's their time,
Yeah.
so.
Well, is it something that we could get for Monday's meeting, or no, that's impossible?
That's impossible.
Okay.
From the person who has to do the work. No.
Yep.
Sorry.
She said that before I could say anything. You see how she jumped in?
I have 3 things due Monday
Yeah.
already.
Yeah, I agree that wouldn't be like it would be. It would certainly be the end of next week at the earliest. So, next Friday, potentially.
Well, how about this? If you want to send that to us, then we can review it. That I know the trustees like to take some time to review it, and we want to. Do we want to think about the 19th? Does that seem like a potential day for anybody? I'm not sure what I'm doing.
It's better. Again, Unionville and you still have this.
Then I have the 19th free. Unionville's the night before.
Yep.
I can do that too.
Me
Do you
too.
want to do a morning, an afternoon, evening?
Whatever works. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's important we get to see it to look at first. So
Yeah.
just to kind of so we come prepared.
So
Yeah, the afternoon of the 19th would be great. Just the same time.
All right, same time on the 19th.
Okay.
what was that? It was 4:00, right?
Yep.
For BPL, and we will try and get it to you by Wednesday of that week. Does that make sense to you? So that you can look at it.
Great.
I got that to get out to bid. So yeah, I think Wednesday would be better.
Wednesday the 17th.
Yeah.
All right, Wednesday the 17th or the morning of Thursday the 18th at the latest, but we'll try and get it to you at a day or two ahead so that you can look at it, and then we'll meet the afternoon of the 19th.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Paul and Lisa, I did just have one question about, I don't remember ever hearing an estimate on how much the drive-through or curbside area is costing, in addition to the other estimates we'd spoken about earlier. Because I know that's kind of a late in the day addition.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, we have not, you're right. We have not done that yet. So that's part of what we're talking about
Yeah.
in adding into this phase 1 that we're going to look at to send you next week. So we'll look at that number and see if it makes sense. And we'll try and look a little more carefully at what we can break out in case that doesn't make sense. How would we make a 1A and a 1B? So we haven't gotten the site numbers yet. So that's something we definitely need to work on.
Okay, thanks.
It is 1,300 square feet, though.
What is?
That addition.
Oh, the building addition.
Yeah. So that we do know.
Oh, yeah, that's easy. But
Yeah.
there's so many variables to estimating asphalt and grading and all the other pieces to that we just need to think about that, because there's also stormwater that we have to control there, and there's some topography to deal with. So we want to make sure that we're not presenting something that can't work in the end.
Right.
All right.
Great.
Okay. Well, thank you for meeting with us tonight. We'll see you in a couple weeks. We'll try and get something to you in about a week and a half to look at ahead of time. And I think we're fine tuning a lot of things here that are going to make this a master plan that is really Bethlehem's master plan, and that pleases me. That this is all about the issues you folks have identified, and we've continued to refine. And to me, that means that we're headed down the right track. So very happy about that.
Great. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
your weekend.